as Indians, we don't care as much about price as we do about value.
Hello and welcome to Declassified, Ather's community podcast where we talk about the things happening behind the scenes and the story of building things at Ather, right? Today we have Milind, who was last seen talking to customers, I think somewhere in 2019 at a Cafe Azure meetup with some customers where you happened to crash their ride. So yeah, Milind, tell us, what have you been up to and what do you do at Ather?
So currently I do two roles at Ather, right? One is where I take care of the product team. In that role, we essentially try and answer what the next big thing for us is, and take care of all the products that we have today in the market, right? The second role that I do is chief of staff to the CEO, which is a very organization building role. And it is to steer our org with the CEO through this hyper growth phase that we are going through, right? And hyper growth is growth of number of customers, growth of number of products, growth of number of employees, right? And all of these put a very different strain on a startup, right? And essentially, those two roles are what I do at Ather.
Cool. So today we're going to talk a little bit about building products, right? And I think while there are plenty of companies building products, I've seen that the way we have approached it is slightly unique, right? And that our first product and our current product are one of the most expensive scooters that are available in the market today, right? Which clearly means we've been making a lot of money for a while, right? How's your Rolls Royce doing?
I honestly wish we were making a lot of money off these products, but yeah, honestly we are not. And you can look at Ather's parking lot to just let for proof if you want. But the amount of money that we make is essentially a function of two things, right? How much is the price of a product, right? And how much does it take to build and ship and sell and service it, right? So yes, pricing wise, I think we are at a good place, right? Where I think we have found a good product market fit at the price point that we are. But from cost perspective, right? It's been a crazy journey over last 2 years, right? And it's if you look at how commodity prices have spiked over last 2 to 3 years, right? Essentially, one day somebody who owned all of this lithium and cobalt and everything woke up and realized, hey, the world is just shifting to electric, right? And we are sitting on this literally new gold mines. Let's just price it in, right? And that has sent this entire raw material market into a frenzy. So yeah, it's the bill of material is quite crazy right now. And yeah, long story short, no, we are not making a lot of money yet. Hopefully someday, right? Yeah.
Cool. So let's talk a little bit about how we decide to, like build a product and how that relates to the price, right? So typically, as I understand it, let's say if I were building a phone or if I were building a car or a scooter, right? You decide a certain price point that you target, because lower the price point, the larger the addressable market is, right? So you can price something at, say, a phone at 20,000 and you can have millions of units selling. You price a phone at 1.5 and you'll have a maybe 1 million selling it. Right? So how does that typically work? Like for a scooter, did we decide to build a scooter that's priced around the 1 lakh mark, or it doesn't seem like it, because Tarun clearly said the first few scooters cost us about 3.5 lakhs to build, right? And we were selling them at 1.5 or 1.2, right? So how does that approach work for Ather?
Before getting into how that works for Ether, right, I'd just like to dispute the claim that you had, right, which is at lower price you have a larger market, right? Actually, it's not entirely true. I mean, sure, in general, as you go lower on price, more people can afford it. But as Indians, we don't care as much about price as we do about value, right? And even and you take any product example, right? Activa is the highest selling scooter in India, right? It's actually not the cheapest, right? But it's the most valuable in some sense, right? In today's context, I would call it as yesterday's context actually, but it's viewed as the most valuable, right? And if what you were saying were true, why would there be like a massive spike in sales at a Royal Enfield price point, right? Which is 3x of an Activa price, right? Because there is a certain amount of value that those folks see, and Royal Enfield essentially sells more products at that super high price point than most Indian two-wheeler manufacturers sell at like less than half of that price point. So I don't believe that it is that linear, where lower price means higher volumes, right? In terms of how we look at it at Ather, we 450. We honestly didn't think of price as much, right? We just wanted to build the best scooter out there, right? We wanted to build something that all of us would be proud of.
And would use.
Yeah. We actually, you can see it plastered on our walls, right? Built for us was our slogan, and the idea was, if we build for us, there are hopefully enough people like us who will buy it, right? And pricing was something that we had some idea of, but we didn't really care much about. I just being honest, right? And over time, we realized through this journey of 5 years that it took to build the first 450, right, was that we had built something far more valuable than what we had set out to do, right? It was India's first no compromise electric scooter. Actually, it was significantly better in terms of experience.
Could climb flyovers.
Sorry?
It could climb flyovers.
Yeah, it could climb flyovers in reverse. Okay. And it actually it was truly like a great electric scooter, right? First meaningful electric scooter that you could own, ride, and just like with an extremely hassle-free experience, right? It had this entire like touchscreen dashboard, maps, reverse. In my mind, I think reverse is going to be the death of IC engine scooters and motorcycles. But it had reverse, which was amazingly well engineered reverse, right? It's not like we just gave reverse, right? So it had all of these amazing features, and we realized that hey, this we can price it at a certain point, a price that we would be happy to pay. Again, being built for us. If we weren't happy paying such an exorbitant price, we wouldn't have priced it there, right? So it was a price that we were happy paying, and that was how 450's pricing came about, right? And going ahead, how we would price products is again there's a very top down approach, right, where we we believe in providing a certain amount of value to the consumer, right? And there is a strong belief at Ather that if you provide the right amount of value, the right type of consumer, uh, you can price it at points that today are unimaginable, right? And yeah.
Okay. Cool. So, coming back to, I think, today's scooter, we recently launched the Gen 3 and it's been doing pretty well, right? We increased the battery capacity, we did a whole bunch of changes. Um, I think it's fairly commonly known that the battery is the biggest cost component, right? Other than the battery, what are the things that are expensive in the scooter?
So battery is as you said, right? Battery comprises of more than half the cost of the scooter, right? But out of rest of the half, because we built an absolute no compromise chassis. Our chassis is fairly unique and fairly expensive. It's it's essentially not built with the kind of process that most scooters or even bikes are built. Um, so, so chassis being one of them, right? The kind of experience that we wanted to build with the dashboard, with touchscreen, gigahertz level processors, which unlocks crazy new experiences, right? That comes at a price. Um, of course, the motor again that provides that great ride experience, and the controller that runs it, right? Uh, they come at a significant cost today, right? Hopefully, it'll go down, but it's a fairly high price that we pay today for that, right? Uh, and beyond that, there are things like the charger, which technically is not part of any IC engine scooter, right, or motorcycle or anything. That is just additional cost. It doesn't matter what price do you pay for it, but it's a significant additional cost over like an IC engine scooter that you have to pay. So yeah, all of these parts, and then beyond that, there are these places where, for example, shocks, right? The kind of shocks that we have built to give that great uh, ride handling experience, right? Um, I mean, they come at a differential pricing to like a regular scooter today, and it is expensive, but again, no compromise, right? Yeah.
So, you keep mentioning this no compromise, right? But at some point, we will probably have to make some compromises, right? I'm sure that's there. So, like, but there are a lot of values and product features or product specs that we hold very close to our hearts, right? So, what are some of the intangibles for us when specking out a scooter or a motorcycle or the upcoming Ather car?
I'll talk about the plane first, and then come back to scooter. But actually, one of the things that Ather holds very near and dear to its heart, right, is consistency of any experience, right? The other thing is just we prioritize experiences over individual features, right? So that's something that we will not compromise on, right? We'll not give a reverse, right? We will take care of how do you go into a reverse, a park assist mode. What is the response? Can you come out of a ditch into the park assist mode? And how do you get back on the road, right? So we try not to build features, we try and build experiences. In terms of 450 specifically, things that we have never compromised on are design, right? If you look at silhouette of 450 in 2013 and in 2022, it is nearly the same, right? And it's a testament to our engineering and product development capability that we were able to just keep on engineering, keep on upgrading the product within the same iconic silhouette that we have built. And that design is something that we do not ever want to compromise on. I mean, of course, we will over time evolve that design. But in terms of design first approach, we will not compromise on that. And specifically again on 450, I think ride experience is core to the heart of 450, right? The way you can warp through the streets and through the hills and through every known terrain, and just have this amazing ride experience, which is largely due to the kind of chassis that we have built and due to the kind of powertrain that we have engineered, right? That's something that I don't think we'll compromise on in 450, right?
Okay. Given that batteries are biggest cost component, I don't think we can reasonably give an exact cost of the battery as well right now, but we know that a lot of it is masked by the subsidy that's offered by the government, right? Are we in a and a lot of the cost of the battery is also because lithium prices are expensive, it's not made in India, all of that, right?
I stopped tracking a while back, so
yeah. So what does the road ahead look like for electric two-wheelers at least? Like, are we in an endless race to just increase battery capacity and keep pushing for like a 500 kilometer range or a 1,000 kilometer range or a 300 kilometer range, right? Is that how products in the EV two-wheeler space at least going to evolve? Because bigger batteries do come with trade-offs, right? And I think while there have been talks of other types of chemistries and different compositions, I don't think they're anywhere close to being to mass production. So bigger battery, more lithium cells means increased weight, you need more space in the vehicle, cost of replacement becomes really high. So how does that balance look like at least for EV two-wheelers?
So you're right. We are today in a very subsidy supercharged environment, right? Where products that make sense today may not make sense tomorrow, right? When you're putting a 5 kilowatt hour battery pack, if you're putting a 5 kilowatt hour battery pack onto a scooter, forget the other costs of weight and everything. We'll come to that, right? But just the sheer cost of that battery, cost of lugging around that battery, cost of paying the price of that battery, which will now slowly become 75% of your cost of the vehicle, it won't make sense in a post-subsidy era, right? It will it'll just be fairly stupid to build that product. And I'll give you an example, right? If you how much do you ride to office per day?
10 kilometers,
right?
One way, so 20
kilometers, right? Most people, on an average, India rides about 27 to 30 kilometers a day, right? That includes most people's trip to office, to drop their kids to school, to get some groceries, to gym, etc. If you're riding 30 kilometers a day, right? Having a 150 kilometers range vehicle today you're not paying for it, right? Because a large part of it is just, as you said, masked by subsidy, right? But in an era where you end up paying a huge sum of money, actually 5 times more money for than what you need, you will start making that choice. You will start choosing. You'll start not asking for like a 150 kilometer range, you will start asking for, hey, like what is the right range for me? And amazing example of this is what happened in mobile phones, right? Um, a Nokia phone went from this 3-day battery life, 4-day, 5-day to like a week-long battery life, and sometimes even more than that, right? And one day Apple just woke up and said, "Hey, charge every day," right? Because you're getting this beautiful touchscreen display and these amazing, like amazing app ecosystem that you use on a daily basis that opens up, and if you want something that is light and looks lovely, right, to carry, hey, this is the habit that you have to get into, and it's not a bad habit to get into, right? You're not using that phone overnight, so hey, just charge every day. Imagine giving like a 7-day battery life on an iPhone, right? You will be lugging around like a brick of an iPhone. So, and even though you don't see it on scooters or motorcycles today, that's the cost that you're paying. Your vehicle will be so much more nimble if you have engineered it right to a requirement, right? And it'll also get in a post subsidy world. It'll also get priced right when you're paying for it, because you will not want to pay 3 to 5 times more than what you truly need. Right? So that's essentially where I see the market going, where when subsidy world is when this whole supercharged by subsidy time ends, I think you will start slowly seeing a shift to the right products. And the way we are building products at Ather, we don't want to get customers into this habit of having like a 200 kilometer range product, right? Because then your habits sort of start changing irreversibly. Like you want to charge every weekend, right? But hey, if you just get into this habit of charging daily, right? And we'll make charging extremely easy for you to do daily, right? Ather's charging experience today was built with this in mind. It's a one-click charging experience. There are no switches. There are no
RFID cards or QR codes.
There's absolutely nothing. Just take that charging connector, plug it in, just walk away. Don't worry, vehicle will charge itself, right? That experience was built with this thought process in mind, that charging every day will allow you to own these amazing products which are nimble, which are also priced right. So yeah, that's where I see the world going in terms of products and their range.
Cool. Interesting that you talked about charging every day at home, right? But there might be some days when I might want to go to a different city, or I might want to do 100 kilometers, right? But charging experience while at home is great. I think there's also a reason why we are building charging infrastructure across the country, right? Whether that is in destinations that you might be at, like let's say a restaurant or a cafe or some place where you might stop by for some time. So how does that fit into the experience? Is it better to just charge a battery over and over again? Because that's what I do with my phone, right? If I have to get on a flight, I can charge my phone in the flight, or I can charge my phone in a car, or I can charge it on my bike, right? Is that the same way to look at for scooters as well?
Charging infrastructure for me is a very interesting piece today, because in people's mind, charging infrastructure today replaces a refueling infrastructure of yesterday, right? But I honestly don't look at it that way, right? There are you mentioned all of those ways, right? But there are 3 ways of charging. One is at your home, other is at these destinations, right? And in my mind, the vision is, over time, anywhere you park, you can charge, right? And that infrastructure is there, right? Wherever you see a street light, wherever you see tube light in a parking, there is electricity available. And that is a way in which the electric infrastructure, which is the energy of, which is the fuel for electric vehicles, is very different from fuel infrastructure of petrol or diesel vehicles in general, right? Because that infrastructure is truly available at maybe 20, 30, 50, 100 points in a city. But electricity is truly ubiquitous. And all you need to do is just tap it, right? So,
Legally, tap it legally.
so I see a large part of this charging habit coming from just charging at home, right? It's like getting a petrol pump at home. And why would you, like, you don't go and replace your phone battery at like a I don't know, battery swapping station today, right? You just charge at home. Why should that be any different for an electric scooter or electric motorcycle or an electric car, where the infrastructure is available, right? So that habit shift will happen, and it's a mental shift. B, from an infrastructure perspective, and you'll see this in Europe, right? You will see these parking, just roadside parking, which will just have like a pole coming out of it, and you can just charge your car there, right? Which means parking becomes equivalent to charging. And interesting difference between a vehicle and a phone, right, is you use your phone probably 10 to like 16 hours a day, right? At least it's there, right? Your vehicle you use for like anywhere between 1 to 3 hours a day. So it has this 21 hours of downtime. So it has very small use case of actually charging very, very fast, or going to like a place and charge and then move, right? But all of that being said, Ather, because it's a very hard shift to make to this new era of like just charging anywhere, right? For the infrastructure and for the consumer as well, we have built these charging stations, which are super fast charging stations, right? Where you can literally get like a meaningful top up within 15 minutes for any sort of journey that you'll have in the city, and just walk away, right? So we are solving this, and that's what we have at Ather always tried to do, right? Provide a solution rather than build a product or build a feature or what, right? So, but honestly, that's the way I see charging infrastructure shaping up of the future. So, yeah.
Cool. So coming back to I think the 450 platform or the line of scooters that we've built so far, right? We have two iterations of 3 iterations of the 450 so far, right? The latest one being Gen 3. We have done a bunch of things that with Gen 2, obviously the cost increased, and that was a whole discussion altogether. But since then, we've actually managed to add some stuff while keeping the price the same, right? These are like redesigning mirrors, for example. While that looks simple, I think there is a lot of cost involved in R&D in terms of getting the manufacturing done from scratch for it, right? And a bunch of things. And we've also added increased battery capacity, which meant adding a few more cells to each battery pack, right? We've also brought in complexity into production, right, by bringing in new colors. So we went from white to having the gray and the green, and for some time having the Series 1 as well, right? A lot of these, and of course, the people's favorite of the Android dashboard and the increased RAM. But all of these are seemingly expensive changes for a product that we are trying to, bring to profitability, right? How are these decisions made? Like, what gets included in a product and what gets pushed on later, right?
So the thing that we care about first and foremost, right, is a product market fit, right? Which means there is a there's a value that the consumer sees and is willing to pay that price, right? And anything that we believe will enhance the value of this product, right? And you take enhancing the battery capacity, enhancing the tires and the ride experience on a performance scooter, enhancing just the color options that you have, right? A lot of these we feel are valuable changes that consumers are willing to pay for and sometimes pay more for, right? Those are pieces that we will keep investing in, right? In terms of the product. Things that we will avoid doing over time are these gimmicky things which don't add significant value to the consumer, which are just features for the sake of having features, right? And that and which are also not consistent with the personality of the vehicle, right? So those we will steer away from, right?
Is that why we don't have USB charging on the scooter?
Sure, it's a very USB charging is a very interesting use case, but it's one of those things that again it in our minds it doesn't make sense yet, but more like weirder example of this is actually like speakers on a vehicle, right? I mean, sure, there are those few people who may enjoy partying around the scooter, but for us, things like those, and we do have a speaker, right? But that meaningfully integrates with all the experiences that we want to provide, right? Versus having a speaker that you can dance to the beat of on a scooter is something that I don't think we'll do.
Okay, so there are a lot of hidden costs, right? Like I think we talked about the colors, redesigning the mirrors, or even changing the design of the battery pack to incorporate the new cells, right? There are costs, hidden costs involved in this, right? That might not show up significantly, but those do exist. So how does that work?
So there is a cost to building the same product but better, right? Yeah, at the end of the day, it's still a scooter, right? It still has as I said, like a shock absorber, right? It still has a chassis, right? But there is, like as Ravneet says, right? There's chassis and there's chassis, right? There's a dashboard and there's a dashboard, right? There's a massive cost to getting the little things right, and getting, for example, the handling right on the vehicle has these enormous intangible costs, right? Just choice of the kind of architecture that you have, right? To the kind of shocks that you have on the rear, right? Getting this sort of a powertrain, right? And having like this beautiful open transmission design, right? That goes very well with the aesthetics of the vehicle, still providing that sort of like absolute instant torque, right? Has a cost to it, right? There is a cost to even giving the kind of touchscreen that we give on on the scooter, right? Which has to withstand like staying in the sun and the rain for years and years, right? So there are a lot of these intangible costs. One of the also there is not just monetary cost to pay, right? There are intangible costs in terms of for consistency, right? Which is, could we have a product which has 100 kilometer per hour top speed, right? Sure, we can. Like it's not hard, but is it? Can an electric scooter give 100 kph top speed on a highway such as outer ring road, right? Consistently, it's an extremely expensive proposition, right? So within the cost that we have, we will give you 80 kph. We'll give you, but we'll give that to you consistently, right? And there's a cost of consistency that is essentially not having marketability of 100 kph, right? But that's the cost that we are willing to pay today to just ensure that we deliver what we promise, right? And not give you 100 kph, 120 kph, 115 kph for like just 3 minutes and then just like drop off a cliff after that, right? So yeah, those are a lot of these intangible costs.
One of the other intangible costs I think we've put on ourselves, like the other ones, is the cost of software development, right? Because I think we're really bullish on smart features, and we had Shripriya talk about why Ather is doing that, right? A lot of auto manufacturers don't do this. A lot of their teams are just product and engineering, manufacturing, sourcing. We have an entire vertical dedicated to software, right from the mobile app to the dashboard to the firmware, motor controller, all of that, right? Can you tell us more about how what is the cost of this, and why is there no compromise on this?
I'll start with the firmware first because it's far more complex in terms of when you build all of these subsystems in-house, right? When you build the motor controller, the charger, the dashboard, the peripheral controller, the battery management system, right? It's not enough to just build the hardware, right? The firmware that goes into all of these needs to be absolutely consistent with each other. All of these subsystems need to talk to each other, need to take right decisions thousands of times every second, right? And if you put that hard work into it, it gives you amazing results. It gives you amazing control over the kind of experiences that you build. Having this absolutely integrated ecosystem of like a system of all of these pieces together, and long term, it also allows you to add to build more valuable products. Like you will not have to replicate functionality when you a lot of times when you buy these systems from different manufacturers, different vendors, they will have their own software which will have its own functionality for safety, reliability, durability. All of these software, all of these firmwares talking to each other will and they will not also be synced, right? So a lot of these pieces, when thought of together, give you a control over the experiences that you want to build, and b over time allow you to build more value into the product by removing redundant functionalities, right? So that's why we keep building firmware in-house. It's extremely core to our heart, and we hope to build significantly better experiences over time. Now, coming to software, right?
Like we use Google Maps. Our app connects over the internet, so there's cloud storage cost. There is cost of maintenance of software.
Yeah.
And Ather Connect is free for a while, so
For a while, right?
Yeah.
So there is a cost to all of it, right? But let's just keep that aside for a while, right? And look at why we are doing this. Right? And again, you have to think of the shift that happened when the whole Nokia era turned into the whole iPhone and smartphones era after that, right? And there was a reality where phones were phones. They were used to play Snake and just
Tetris.
call and message, right? That's it. That was all that they could do. Um, and then you move to this entirely new touchscreen phones with super fast connectivity, right? And you look at the number of the amount of change that has happened in our lives, amount of value that has been generated over time because of these changes, right in front of our eyes today. That change is happening where uh, the IC engine scooters of today turning into electric scooters of tomorrow, with with the uh, with the touchscreen dashboards and connectivity. We are just scratching the surface of what can be done, what sort of experiences can be built over with these sort of powers in our hand, right? And that is essentially what we are bullish about, right? And it's one of those no compromise philosophies that we are sitting with, that we'll not look at the cost of it today, right? We'll look at the value that it can add tomorrow, right? And the day after. And in our minds, there's a very nice long roadmap which truly makes the products of today even more valuable tomorrow, right? And that's what we are investing in. So all the costs that you talked about, right, for us are investments today to build great experiences of tomorrow, right? Which is essentially what we stand for as Ather. And now coming back to the cost of it, yes, there is like cost of everything involved. But if you look at the Google Maps experience on a scooter, right? Yeah, you'll notice the difference versus like hanging your phone there and just like risking it, or just having somebody tell you directions from behind, right? It's a reality that you will over time just shift to, right? A lot of value added services that are in the making, right? All of those will become the norm, and you'll just ask yourself one day, hey, why didn't I have this before? Tell me again, right?
Because they gave you USB charger.
Yeah.
So you can mount
Stop
your
being so
phone there.
senti about USB charger. So yeah, that's
Cool. So all this is fine, right? Clearly, we are very passionate about not bringing cost into the equation. But how do you convince the costing team or the finance team, or like people who deeply care about business, that you want to sell something, or you want to bring the BOM cost up to a price that people are willing to pay and almost make no money off it, or even lose a little money off it? Like, how are we comfortable doing that?
so I just look at myself in the mirror, and one role of me talks to the other role. Because in my product role, I have to take all of these bullish decisions, right? Hey, let's not worry about the cost. And then I wake up as a chief of staff next day and I like, shit, we are losing money left, right, and center. Oh my god. So it two things, right? One thing that we keep looking at is the should cost of things, right? What should things cost, right? What should aluminium cost? What should semiconductors cost? What should lithium and everything cost, right? And everything that we are doing today, right? We do believe that today the prices are inflated. Today, Ather is not at a scale where we are getting the benefit of the economies of scale that other manufacturers in the ecosystem have, right? So we have a long way to go in terms of achieving the cost structures on the products that we are building, right? So just by focusing on that piece and saying that, hey, yeah, sure, we are at this crazy stupid cost today, but is there a roadmap to chisel this cost down to a point where we can make business sense out of it, right? And if there is, then we will take that leap. We will take that leap of building that experience at a higher cost today, right? Because it will reduce the cost tomorrow, right? And it's also that chicken and egg problem, right? Of if you don't introduce some, like if you're introducing a new technology today, where you have maybe one vendor across the entire globe who can provide that, right? It will be expensive, but the bet that you take is this becomes the norm. More vendors sort of come into the picture, right? And you say, hey, what when you reach like a scale of 1 million scooters, right? What does the cost structure look like for this? And you say, hey, this doesn't look too bad, right? We are paying 3x the cost today, but you can never go to X if you don't pay that 3x today. So you will always be constrained, right? So we have learned to take those leaps to say that what is the cost of tomorrow? If it makes sense, let's do it, right? And that's how we can build like stupid expensive products today.
Talking about million scooters, right? Sounds great.
I just walked into that one.
Sounds great. What does the product roadmap for the 450 line look like, right? Let's not talk about Gen 4, Gen 5, Gen 6 that we clearly have already built out. But what is the direction that we are going in?
I think 450 is we've built a great, as I said, product market fit, right? People who love, like, own it, and people who have this, who we have built this for, swear by it, right? They love it, and that's the position that you want to be in, right? And that's the position that you want to double down on over time, right? So how do we keep doing that, right? How do we keep the 450 value proposition fresh over time? Today, any customer that we are selling to is buying a 450 for the first time. That's a very different, it'll be a very different problem statement 2 to 3 years down the line, where you will be selling a new 450 or selling a 450 to somebody who already owns a 450. Why should that person upgrade? Why should that person not move to some other shiny new thing, right? That's something that is on the top of our mind when building a 450 roadmap, right? But at the heart of it, I believe we have built a product brand that will outlast us, right? It's an amazing brand that we have built. So we will keep building newer and newer experiences. We will keep making it feel fresher, right? That's the overall direction that I see 450 going in. Of course, as I said earlier as well, right? Without compromising on design, without compromising on ride experience, we'll keep doing that. Right?
But there is an imminent post-subsidy world, right? Where we will have to do some cost cutting. We will have to probably cut down on some features to achieve a certain price point, right?
Yeah.
How do you factor that into the whole roadmap?
I think part of this was the whole getting the right range products, right? And we'll have to figure out what that right range is in the post-subsidy era. Part of it is, I won't say cost cutting, right? But defining 450 more sharply in the direction that it is in, right? Which is performance handling, without compromising on these pieces, how can you how can you achieve the kind of price point that makes sense in the post-subsidy world, but again keep all of that aside, right? Just the one thing that we'll keep doing is ensuring that it it is truly valuable at the price points that we will keep launching it at, right? And today's price point is a wonderful place to be at, right?
After subsidy.
After subsidy, right? But again, I think we can make sense of this product at there and thereabout price point, even in the post subsidy era, right? I truly believe so. Yeah, without just cutting like flesh and bones of this scooter. Yeah.
That was a really interesting chat, and we didn't cover a lot of, I think, other aspects to pricing. Like, for example, there are marketing costs, right? There are office costs, there are employee costs, right? Maybe we'll bring you back in your chief of staff role sometime later and cover all of that and talk about how building awareness, building brand, and all of that tie into building a company, right? Anything else you wanted to cover before we sign off?
No, I think we pretty much covered it all. I think if we get into the other side, it'll be probably 40 more minutes of me just keep on talking about it, right? So, but yeah, I think no, thanks Abhishek. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for joining us. Have a good day.